Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Sunday, April 20th. This video will be up tomorrow, Monday. I want to start off with some funny stuff. Two funny things that I saw on TV yesterday, and then maybe some more funny things. Definitely, it's so weird every. But whenever I'm watching, I was watching just like the first day of playoff basketball, and I tape all the games, and I watch some of them. I have more interest in some than others. And there was like one good game, maybe two of them that but I fast forward through. I don't watch commercials and I don't watch foul shots, and I fast forward through chunks of the game if it's a blowout and see if the other team comes back. Usually I end up just watching the fourth quarter or the last 5 minutes or things, depending on what's going on, how much interest I have at that particular day. But I will always stop if I see a commercial for a pharmaceutical drug, because they're always weird and they always have bizarre side effects. And I'd seen this one. I'd seen it like on the news, like CNN or something, but I wasn't able to like deal with it. Like I heard some of these things that I'm about to show you. So this commercial.
Dupixent helps people with asthma breathe better in as little as...
Okay, so they're doing this weird disco stuff, right? They do these weird things in these commercials where they're trying to be light and funny, but they're talking about usually a serious medical condition and then a drug that could cause severe side effects. And so they try to make it light and goofy. This is the new, I've shown you a bunch of commercials like this, right? Like these guys, the way he's dressed, this guy, over the top, they try to make these things silly. And this is fucking serious, right? If you have these medical conditions, like asthma is a serious condition. And it's terrifying for people who have it, right? Debilitating. And they start off like this.
Dupixent helps people with asthma breathe better in as little as 2 weeks. So this is better. That too. Dupixent is an add-on treatment for...
Look at him.
specific types of moderate to severe asthma. It works with your asthma medicine to help improve lung function. Dupixent is not for sudden breathing problems and doesn't replace a rescue inhaler. It's proven to help
So it doesn't replace a rescue inhaler.
prevent asthma attacks. Severe allergic reactions can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing.
Wait, so we're going to go back to this, but severe allergic reactions, get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, and then it's going to go on to the wheezing and trouble breathing. But there's more side effects. This is just the beginning. We're 26 seconds into this commercial, and the rest is about side effects for the most part. They'll do a little ditty at the end. So, I was like thinking about this, get help right away for face, get help right away. Like, is that, you call 911 if your face, mouth, or tongue or throat is swelling? And I was thinking about, like, the big one is the tongue, right? And, like, hello? Yeah, doctor? I think I have an emergency. My tongue is swollen, and my face and mouth also, and my throat could also be swelling, but I can't tell because my tongue is 4 times its normal size. Like, tongue swelling, it's like fucking life-threatening, right? I mean, all these things, because it makes you not have the ability to breathe. And, like, I heard that before, and I was like... Yeah.
Face, mouth, tongue.
Oh, here, let's go back a little bit more.
Asthma attacks. Severe allergic reactions can occur. Get help right away for face, mouth, tongue, or throat swelling, wheezing, or trouble breathing. Tell your doctor right away of signs of inflamed blood vessels.
What do you mean signs of inflamed blood vessels? Like rash?
Rash, chest pain, worsening shortness of breath, tingling, or numbness in limbs.
Worsening shortness of breath, so it could make it worse. So you could have shortness of breath, which this is supposed to prevent, but the opposite is happening. And then it could inflame your blood vessels, which could also make it difficult for you to breathe, because that's a symptom of that. And other things with inflamed blood vessels. This could happen. If your tongue isn't swollen, maybe you have inflamed blood vessels as well. So inflammation, this thing is going to cause inflammation. Swelling in your mouth, throat, face, tongue, and also blood vessels and things. So this drug could cause severe inflammation. Like inflammation is the worst, right? Inflammation is responsible for so many issues. There's this great interview I saw, this little clip that was up on, somebody either sent it to me, I don't know what it was. But this guy was talking about how when he lived in England and we come to America, he would gain 5 pounds of inflammation. He said that Americans aren't overweight. They gain inflammation. So like most people, it isn't like, there's fat and there's, you're gaining weight. But a lot of times that weight is inflammation, right? So like that's like completely fucked up, right? That's because of the American toxicity in our foods and the lack of simplicity. Like if you get Quaker Oats in England, it's like 3 ingredients, and Quaker Oats in America is like 20 ingredients, right? And so
Tell your doctor of new or worsening joint aches and pain, or
new or worsening joint aches and pains.
parasitic infection.
Oh, yeah, I missed that shit on that last one.
Worsening joint aches and pain, or parasitic infection.
How would I know I have a parasitic infection? This is all inflammation stuff, right? But it's gonna give you parasites or create a parasitic infection? Fuck is that? Like they were having milkshakes. Like this is, they're trying to, like your visual images are not, they should show people with these conditions, right? They should show somebody with a big ass swollen tongue, and they should show people with all these types of things, right? Like this is what, all these, like someone with a parasitic infection. So it would really make you think twice before taking this medication, right?
Don't change or stop steroid, asthma, or other treatments without talking to your doctor. When you can get more out of your lungs, you can do more with less asthma. And isn't that better? Ask your doctor.
Doesn't sound better. This guy, let's see this guy's fucking tongue. Pop your tongue out, bro.
Dupixent, the most prescribed biologic in asthma.
Jesus Christ. It's the number one.
Now approved as an add-on treatment for adults with COPD that is not well controlled, and with a specific marker.
Okay. It's a hard pass for me. I don't have this condition anyway, but Jesus. Okay. So I said I was going to do an update on the chickens and chicks, and actually we have more mushrooms, farm update, lots of things going on. And maybe I'll do a few other video clips. I'll show you some early comfrey that's rocking, whatever. And worms, frogs, big giant bullfrog I got on video. It's hard to see how big it is, but it's there floating. I'll show you that. So I'll do that. I got a bunch of stuff to get into with Trump and the COVID, what a piece of shit he is. They've put up this COVID site, which has got some truth in it, but it covers up all Trump's failure. We'll get into that. So that's a big deal. And that's all coming up. I'm going to make it maybe a shorter video. I have a few comments I want to address, so we'll see how long this is, but I got most of this video already done. So I also saw this yesterday. There was these weird sports. There's a thing called slippery stairs, where they make these slippery stairs, and the kids and young adults have to climb up these stairs. Why that's, it's got soap and shit on them, and they're pulling each other down. I mean, there's all these weird sports. Cornhole thing is a big thing now, but it's an old-time sport that's become, they have axe throwing and some of these other things, and some other kind of like, all these new invented sports. This one's called quad ball.
In the dark navy blue uniforms with the red, blue, and white stripes.
So this is Quidditch. This is just, there's a Quidditch loops. I can't show you because I copied this off my TV.
And away we go.
Can't use my pointer.
Team USA grabbing the volleyball. Trying to score through the net, but gets knocked away. Picked up by
okay, so you see that there's two different kinds of balls. The volleyball is what you're throwing through the loops. And there's another ball. I can't remember the game of Quidditch all that much from Harry Potter. Quad ball. They can't call it Quidditch because it's like copyrighted. So back in the day, my family was like, we were kind of restrictive of what the content our kids got, because a lot of it's just bad content, right? And so my ex wanted me to read the Harry Potter books because they were very intense. And this is when they were popular. Of course, the movies, which my kids end up seeing. I saw some of the movies, didn't love them. But one of the kind of interesting thing was this game of Quidditch, and the reason it was interesting is they played it on flying witch brooms, which made it. I mean, when you saw the thing of the movies, it made it kind of cool because they were flying, right? And they had this thing called the snitch, I believe it is, snitch. And there's one person who was supposed to catch the snitch, and of course it was Harry Potter. And catching the snitch was like 1,000,000 points. I don't think they have a stitch. Maybe it's a stitch. I don't know. Fuck, I don't give a shit. And if you catch the snitch, it kind of wipes out. And the snitch isn't always caught, right? It's not like, but it pretty much wipes out all the score. Like catching the snitch is like the biggest thing. Like I think it ends the game. And of course Harry Potter's always going to catch it because he's fucking Harry Potter. He's the star of the show. They also had these things. I think they were called thumpers. And in this game, they just throw balls at people. We'll see that here. And so,
Full strength here as they move the volleyball around here, looking for a shot as Ian Skura.
so you see, they're trying to score the volleyball.
Really good match defense up front and a turnover generated. Turnover.
And they've thrown the other ball at people.
Ball gets knocked away, and a shot through the goal is good by Lindsay Morella. Kind of a right place, right time.
The best part of this fucking thing is they run around with these sticks between their legs. So it's supposed to represent a flying broom, but they're not flying. So it means that they can't use one of their hands, and they got to run around with a stick between their legs like morons. It would be an okay game, maybe. Not. I don't think it's like a spectacular sport, but it'd be okay if they didn't have the stick. Again, it's just supposed to represent a broom. But you're not really flying; you're running. So the stick is, uncomfortable. I mean, it's just going to end up hurting somebody, jabbing yourself. It's just so stupid. And it takes one of your hands and arms out of the game completely. And so as much as this game doesn't translate to muggles, this is fucking muggle shit. Her running around with the stick between her legs here. And then them throwing these balls. There's like two different kind of balls. Ones that you can throw at people and one you can score. You can see here, let me go through this again here. There's stuff's happening where they're, say this slow motion. They're going to come and show it again here. Replay. So she catches the ball. She knocks it down. It throws it to the room, and they knock down the goal. The goal, totally gets knocked down. I mean, it's just a moronic game. It's such a loser sport. Because, what made it interesting is they were flying. They've taken some of the key elements out of the game. They can't even call it Quidditch because that's probably copyrighted by that whole weird fucking shit. She stole that book from the premise of that book from Jane Yolen, I believe her name is, who said somewhere that she wouldn't mind a big check because she had written a book about some kid who had red hair. His best friend had red hair. He had glasses, and they were in a magic school. It's a much shorter book. It's not as developed as Harry Potter, but the premise is already there. And it was a fairly popular kids book, and that whole idea got hijacked from her. She never sued, but she was a person who wrote like hundreds of kids books. So, anyways, people just do stupid shit. Right? Speaking of which, so for whatever reason, Twitter recommends Juanita Broderick, who I guess has a big Twitter following. Remember, she was somebody who had some kind of dealings with the Clintons. Maybe Bill raped her or something. Look, I'm not laughing at it, but just, I don't know what happened. I don't want to look up what she had beef with the Clintons. And now she's very popular on Twitter. So much so that Twitter recommends this to me. And she had this thing, the lab leak, and I had to make sure it was true because she's the kind of person that puts out a lot of disinformation that goes to the right-wing side. But this is a real thing. It's President Donald Trump, the White House. This is the lab leak, the true origins of COVID-19. And they got him walking forward like he's a badass. And fuck this guy. Because, he did Operation Warp Speed. Did I say that already? This is, he got worked on COVID. They made him wear a mask, and he wore a mask. He said a bunch of stupid shit, like people should inject bleach into their bodies to kill COVID. Like just the stupid Trump shit with no knowledge, no awareness, which made things worse, which they totally disempowered him over it. And then they shut down the economy, which fucked us. And that was, was going to happen anyway because we had an economic catastrophe. It's why he lost the election, because Biden didn't have to run. They could hide Biden away because of COVID, and then the mail-in ballots, which cost him the election. But the big thing was the Operation Warp Speed and how many people, Bill Gates said that optimistically they could have a vaccine by 2022. And by that time, COVID was done. And so there would have been no mandates. Kyrie Irving wouldn't have suffered what he suffered. All those things. All the people that ended up having to get it because of their work and, these mandate bullshit things that happened. I mean, all the fear and panic, the way they demonized anti-vaxxers. And maybe it was a good thing that happened because it won't happen again. Maybe. I don't know. Like there'll be some. But he should have stood up for it then. He didn't. And so, now it's too late. Like you got fucking worked. You got punked on COVID. You worthless piece of shit. You don't get to look like a badass. He's like, he's like Dirty Harry coming in. He had a chance to do this when he was president. And he didn't stand up for us, and he didn't push back, and he did Operation Warp Speed. He got worked by the pharmaceutical companies, and he fucked everybody. And so I'll play that at the end, my compilation of him talking about himself being the father of the vax. And so the proximal origins of COVID-19 publication, which is used repeatedly by the public health officials and the media to discredit the lab leak theory, was promoted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that COVID originated naturally. The virus process of biological characteristics, this is not found in nature. Data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction in humans, thus runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. Wuhan is the home of China's foremost SARS research, which is a history conducted of the gain of function research, gene-altering organism supercharging, and inadequate biosafety levels. Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019, months before COVID was discovered at the wet market. Nearly all measures of science, if there was evidence of natural origins, it would have already surfaced, but it hasn't. So these are all good points. Trump just doesn't get to make them like he fucking didn't fuck us in the first place, right? But here's the thing. They're demonizing China. Now, why is China allowed? Like, they should get economic sanctions, and they should be, if this is the truth, if you're saying this is now the truth, then why aren't you fucking, and I'm not talking about tariffs, right? I'm talking about the world coming down on China. The world, everyone who lost citizens, that China released a biological weapon intentionally or unintentionally, and China should no longer have in lab leak because, America was involved with these labs. And so America is just as complicit because America shared stuff with them. And they shouldn't be fucking around. No one should be fucking around with this stuff. And like, if they're going after Iran for nuclear weapons, then they should go after China for biological weapons. Like, they should be like, if not fucking bombed, they should be, so hampered. Like, they should get such an ass kicking of economic sanctions, which I'm not in favor of because they cause kids to starve. But that should be the reaction. China should be like, a big fuck you should come for the rest of the world to China. But they're not the ones. This was done intentionally, and every country was on board with it, right? It wasn't done by one country. Because, I said they released a biological weapon on purpose globally. That's the true story. So Trump is fucking you with this, blaming China, right? Because China would release information showing that everyone else was complicit. That's why isn't China punished for killing a million Americans? The China fucked up, and they're fucked up. Why aren't they giving us economic sanction? Like, why don't they give us? Why isn't China paying everybody off for the people they killed? Right? Was it like fucking 8 million, 7 million, 6 million people worldwide? 1 million Americans? And so this is the Cardinal seafood market, and this is this other stuff. This is all this other kind of gain of function research. These yada yada yada. Echo Health. NIH's procedures for funding and overseeing potentially dangerous research are deficient, unreliable, and pose a serious threat to both public health and national security. Furthermore, NIH fostered an environment that promoted invading federal record-keeping laws, as seen through the actions of Dr. Morans and the FOIA lady, Marge Moore. And so Joseph R. Biden, gave Fauci clemency. Like, this is official White House. This is it's funny what they're doing here, because like they're totally fucking Fauci. And, they're, all this. Anthony Fauci pardon, a full pardon for any offenses. I mean, this is real shit. But this guy, of course, was asking about it. That dude. And so, all of it. And so, the World Health Organization stuff and mask mandates, which Trump wore a mask, right? Like, don't come out here. There was no conclusive evidence that masks effectively protected Americans from COVID-19. Public health officials flopped on the efficiency of masks without providing Americans scientific data, causing a massive uptick in public distrust. We'll get into this in a moment with Trump. I'll also show the compilation I have from him. Prolonged lockdowns caused immeasurable harm to not only the American economy, but also the mental, physical health of Americans, with a particularly negative effect on younger children, rather than prioritizing the protection of this vulnerable populations. Federal state policies force millions of Americans to forego crucial elements of health and financially sound life. Trump is the one, they worked him. Trump, admit that you got worked. Don't walk in here like some fucking tough guy, you piece of shit, right? You got fucking worked. You're the one, he put on a mask. They made him put on a mask. He wouldn't wear one, but they made him do it. And then he shut down the economy, which introduced all these issues. I mean, he fucked us all by doing that. New York's executive chamber, led by presently by the governor, Katie Hochul, redacted documents offered numerous legitimate privilege claims, and withheld thousands of documents with any apparent legal basis to obstruct the select subcommittee's investigation into Governor Cuomo's pandemic-era failures. We know about that, right? Social distancing, lockdowns, New York pandemic failures. Evidence shows Cuomo administration worked to cover up tragic aftermath of their Polly decision in an apparent effort to shield themselves from accountability. Remember, they went with the fucking, they got rid of him for sexual abuse, but he killed all these people. COVID misinformation. And then there's these other things here. Okay, so listen to what piece of shit Trump put out here. So I searched for vaccines, and this document here that is 557 pages, it's the only place where they mention vaccines. They don't have anything else on the site. Like, they don't say anything about vaccines. And the first one is Operation Warp Speed was tremendous success and a model to build upon in the future. See, look at this. The Trump thing. You agree with this? That piece of fucking garbage. What a piece of shit. The vaccine, which are now probably better characterized in therapeutics, undoubtedly saved millions of lives by diminishing the likelihood of severe disease and death. Now, Trump is backing he made a bunch of mistakes, and Operation Warp Speed is the number one mistake. And we know the effects of this thing, right? There was something that just popped up today. There's like 140 Canadian doctors that are now dead. And it showed them, it was like a video of them, all their faces, like just, quickly going through them. But this has all these mentions of it here. And he got worked by COVID. Despite lacking scientific basis, vaccine passports became a de facto lockdown for unvaccinated Americans. You know, this is all these things. The Biden administration and many public officials exaggerated the power of COVID-19 vaccines. But, like he had to say that thing about Operation Warp Speed. Because we all know, all his Trumpers are probably have a selective memory. He fucked us with that. He fucked America. And he didn't have to push it out that quickly because even Bill Gates said 2022 was optimistic. And so he was the father of the COVID vaccine because of Operation Warp Speed, and no one can fucking deny it. In fact, they're saying it here because they have all these things that say negative things about it here. The presidential candidate Joe Biden, President candidate Kamala Harris have contributed to the early distrust of Operation Warp Speed and COVID-19 vaccines. What? No, you fucked us with that, right? The Biden administration arbitrarily and without scientific support announced COVID-19 vaccine boosters would be available to all Americans. This thing, so it goes through there. There's 545 mentions in this document, but nothing else, right? This is this stuff right here. They put this document in, right? So let's go back to the beginning of the document. But if you search the rest of the site, it's not anywhere. This is the only, this under Cuomo's, right? The first mention of vaccines in this select subcommittee on coronavirus, chairman by Brad Weststaub. This is something that just happened, that they put this out as part of their thing. And again, blaming Biden and all this is at the bottom of the article. And there's nothing about vaccines in this whole thing. Because, he's still owned by Pfizer, and it was a fucking nightmare. And so I've said this before, if there was a lab leak, or if this came from a lab, then there should be no experimentation of this sort anymore anywhere, certainly in China. But America was involved with this lab. It's like undeniable. And so, this thing should be it. This should be over. Stop fucking around with things you can't control. But they would have to then admit, China would at least say, all right, we're going to tell this real story here, that there was agreed upon, there was an agreed upon release of this biological weapon to reduce population. And Trump isn't going to say that because he was a president and he agreed. It happened under him. So fuck him for trying to look good on this, look like a badass. Like this guy, Trumpers should bail on this guy once and for fucking all. I mean, they should have bailed on him for Operation Warp Speed in the first fucking place. Like anybody who's a real truther, he was the worst fucking guy. And now he's come back, because he pretends he's your truther. He pretends he's on your side. He convinces people he's on their side, that he's going after the bad guys in the government, the deep state. He didn't even know. He denied ever knowing Cubies, QAnon people. He didn't even know what QAnon was, but he says, I'm hearing some good things that they say good things about me and they really like me, but I don't know who they are. And then he threw them under the bus during fucking January 6th, and then he embraced them again when it came to this election and put out these fucking narratives. He's just a fucking piece of shit. This is a piece of, even though there's truth and good things in this document, and it's a positive step after the debacle that was COVID, it's still fucked because he was a part of it, and he's denying the most important parts of it, in Operation Warp Speed, the worst parts of it, that he was, the father of the fucking vaccine. Let's get into that. Let me show you let's do the mask thing first here. Okay, so remember there was these shills that came out, that one female doctor, whatever her name was, and she was so big on. Then she said they're nothing more than facial decorations. But Trump wouldn't wear a mask because they sucked like everybody else, and they made him. And this is a photo op, and him in the military, all these people coming out. They would take their masks off. Joe Biden would literally put his mask on, and then take it off when he's at the podium, and then put it back on, and then go backstage and take it off. Remember, they all weren't fucking wearing them. They was all performative, all fucking political theater, all bullshit. And, you know, all of us who suffered through having to wear fucking masks, goofy fucking masks. You know, kids who would wear the same mask all week and it would be filthy. Like there was an image of like like, you know, the underneath the stalls and there's like a little kid's like feet. Like some kid was in the bathroom and the mask was on the ground. And the kid was going to pick it up in like a fucking bathroom, fucking gross public bathroom. And the kid was going to pick up the mask, some school bathroom or something like that. Like some, I don't know who took that weird fucking picture, but like it said everything, right? You know, people would throw the masks on the, you know, and throw them in their car and they'd just be sitting there with fucking saliva and bacteria. And they pick the mask up and put it back on the next day. And some of these masks had like chemicals and shit made in China. Like, so it was just fucked up, right? And like it just, you know, the things weren't clean and people were breathing in bacteria and causing respiratory infections, all that shit, right? And then if you said anything about it, fucking YouTube would censor you and all that bullshit. Remember all that stuff with fucking COVID? And then, you know, this stuff. Like, I mean, this, you know, I mean, all these people came out later and said, yeah, they didn't work. Well, why the fuck didn't you say something in the beginning? It was just like some performative thing. And Trump hated the masks and wore it anyway. Remember, Trump gave Chris Christie and a number of people COVID. And Chris Christie and these people, you know, later found out Trump had COVID going into the meeting. Chris Christie was his pal. They were buddies. And Trump called him up and said, can you tell everyone that you didn't get COVID from me? Because I don't want people to know that I gave it to you. And Chris Christie's told this story. And then, which is totally believable because this is the kind of shit Trump does. And then Trump came out and said he got it from Chris Christie. And Chris Christie said, we're done. Like, that was it. Fucking, you're a piece of shit. And so that's why Chris Christie was such an asshole during the campaign. Of course, it didn't mean anything because he ran for president. It was a very aggressive anti-Trump agenda, which didn't, you know, Chris Christie sucks himself, but like this is the kind of stuff that was, you know, Trump failed at COVID. He failed every measurable standard he failed at.
Thank you. Well, I'll probably have a mask if you must know. I mean, I'll probably have a mask. I think when you're in a hospital, especially in that particular setting where you're talking to a lot of soldiers and people that in some cases just got off the operating tables, I think it's a great thing to wear a mask. I've never been against masks, but I do believe they have a time and a place.
Yes, you've already...
The fuck is this? So that was his... What the fuck is this? Universal bought land in the UK in the 80s. Yeah.
heard it, the UK is getting a Universal Studios. But weren't we already promised this once before? They also did...
Okay, yeah, who gives a shit? We're dealing with masks. This was... YouTube just recommended this fucking video. So Trump, you know, he got worked every possible way. And now he's going to come up with this fucking website, which would be great if he took some accountability for his failure. And he didn't still be talking about Operation Warp Speed was a huge success. It was an epic failure. It was the number one worst thing that came out of all this COVID shit was Operation Warp Speed. And Trump was the fucking father of it. Let's go to those clips here.
Very long. We've instituted it before. 2 additional companies, AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, the Johnson & Johnson's a one-dose, one-shot vaccine, so we're going to see how that works. That would be very helpful if that all came out, and I think it probably will. Also, they're showing tremendous promise, all of them, tremendous problem. We're very hopeful that the FDA will authorize the Pfizer vaccine within days. We've got to get it moving. And Moderna vaccine almost immediately thereafter. Large numbers of tests and samples have been done, so hopefully that'll go very quickly. If authorized, tens of millions of vaccine doses will be available this month, and we'll get it distributed very quickly. We'll have that all set, and hundreds of millions more will quickly follow. Every American who wants the vaccine will be able to get the vaccine And we think by spring we're going to be in a position that nobody would have believed possible just a few months ago. You know, amazing, really amazing. They say it's somewhat of a miracle, and I think that's true. The plan we put forward prioritizes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders.
Greatest achievements was getting the vaccine done in 9 months instead of 5.5 to 12 years. But the problem is, you know, we saved tens of millions of lives all over the world, but I can't talk about it because our base, our beautiful base of which some of you are there, you get angry when we mention the word vaccine. Don't get angry.
You did everything you could to get this vaccine out. I know where you
stand on the vaccine. It was one of the greatest achievements. We did it in less than 9 months.
To be able to do that.
Yeah,
but now it's taken a twist, right?
And then people don't want it. And it probably even affects the others because, you know, there's a big situation with a lot of people don't want to take the vaccine. Well, this played right into their hands. And they want me to do public service messages and everything about everybody taking the vaccine. And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. You know, to get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle. Fauci said it would take 3 to 5 years. He thought it was something that just wouldn't be that effective because it would take so long to get. I pushed the FDA like they have never been pushed before. I wouldn't exactly say they're in love with me. They have never. This is a very bureaucratic organization. I pushed them like they've never been pushed before, and that's why we have it.
The vaccine is one of the greatest achievements of mankind. We would have had in 1917, remember the Spanish flu, killed perhaps 100 million people.
Can you imagine if you had to go through what all of the countries of the world who are now getting the vaccine or soon will be getting it from various companies, but can you imagine if all of those countries had to go through what they've been going through over the last year? You'd lose hundreds of millions of people.
Let the teachers get the vaccine. They should get the vaccine. I hope they do. Again, it's something I'm very proud of. I think if we didn't come up during the Trump administration with a vaccine, you could have 100. And look, I guess in a certain way, I'm the father of the vaccine because I was the one that pushed it. You know, to get it done in less than 9 months was a miracle.
So I think my wife sent me this. Somebody did. Yearly deaths in America, medical errors, 250,000. Medical misdiagnoses, 371,000. Adverse prescription reaction, 100,000. Measles, 4. Biggest cause of mass media hysteria, measles. And so, again, I can't verify these numbers and don't really need to, but you get the general idea of what we're talking about here. So apparently that kid who passed out was Dr. Oz's son. I covered that in yesterday's video. So his daughter passed out. But he swore in here, Trump and... There's the Oz family waiting there. There's Dr. Oz there. And then RFK Jr. swearing him in, right? So he's in charge of something medical, right? There's his wife.
Congratulations. Well, thank you very much, everybody. This is a very important day. It's a day that we're delighted to swear in Dr. Mehmet Oz as the next administrator of the Centers for Medicine and Medicaid Services, which is a big deal.
It's a big deal. Why are you fucking putting this clown up there? You know, he's a not a alternative doctor, right? Like he's got alternative shit, but it's a lot of controversial weight loss shit and a lot of celebrity like stuff that pops on TV. You know, he's a TV doctor. And he's an ass clown, and so it's not like you're putting alternative doctor in there, like somebody who's like a naturopath or somebody who's, embracing controversial things, going up against big pharma and some of these other things, right? Like it's not like he's that guy. He's just a Trump supporter, and so like again, it's just Trump being a piece of shit. He's got rocking his yellow tie.
Congratulations to Dr. Oz and his beautiful wife, Lisa, and their
There's Lisa. Look at her big smile. Thanks, Trumps. Fucking cross wearing.
Friends and family on this.
It's a weird cross. It's one of those ones that's it's almost a plus sign.
Incredible achievement. Come a long way.
You think so, Jake?
Dr. Oz comes to this position as one of the nation's most talented and beloved medical professionals. He graduated from Harvard.
Harvard, right? I heard you fucking Nomagos guys over. You're just getting sworn in by Kennedy.
Oz, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Okay, so let's go back to what Dr. Oz, here he is talking here.
To take care of people in the dawn of their life, the kids.
Can you be any more stiff, RFK Jr.? Look at him. Look at these fucks, right? And so my wife said that she saw a meme. She meant to send it to me, but lost it. It was probably something that popped up on Twitter. And the meme was, and maybe somebody else has it, and if you send it to me, I'll put it up on my next video. But the meme said President Trump swearing in Dr. Oz, and it said, if anybody showed you this 10 years ago, you would have said there's no way, like in 10 years this is going to happen, right? This ass clown who said a lot of controversial shit, and not because he's alternative. It's not like he's anti-vax or he's any of these other things. And so, the guy, and of course, Trump is and was the father of the COVID vaccine, according to himself, self-proclaimed father, and all these things that went along with it, right? So he's not controversial. He's not going against this, he's just a fucking turd, right? Dr. Oz is a fucking, Oprah Winfrey turd. Like, that's how he got started, all this bullshit. But on top of that, John Federman, who is, fucked up now, but he's better than he was debate night. So it was a month after he had a stroke. And he was already inarticulate before he had a stroke. He's already a fucking baboon, Lurch, George the Animal Steele, Uncle Fester, M&F'er, right? Grew, grew, all this stuff. And he was weird. And he was whatever he was. And Dr. Oz, they inserted him as a Trump candidate to take this Senate seat, which was kind of imperative, and embarrassed Trump that Dr. Oz couldn't beat this guy. Because he gave such a bad debate performance, you can't even find the highlights. You can find the full debate, but you can't find highlights. Like, there was multiple videos of highlights of his gaffes, and they were throughout, and they were way worse than Joe Biden's. As senile and demented as Joe Biden was, dementia as, Parkinson's as Joe Biden has, Fetterman was worse. And then after he won, he was suicidal and he got locked, he was put on a 401 hold or whatever they call that. The psychiatric hold they put him on. And he was in the hospital for months, missed his kids' birthdays, didn't swear in. He couldn't do his job for 2 months. And now he needs a device. If he's talking to somebody, he has to read what the person's saying on the device because he can't be in the conversation. I mean, he's completely impaired. And somehow Dr. Oz lost to this guy, which shows you that the American people want no part of this fuck. But because he's a Trumper and he's a supporter of Trump, Trump gave him some run here.
You to be a U.S. Senator, you have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody.
I forgot. Good night, everybody.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show.
Look at that fucking neck fat back here. Look at that fucking net. Look at that fucking massive, whatever's going on there. This is an unhealthy fuck, right?
He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also...
Is he going to lie?
Also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that.
It was like a month ago. You think he calls you up every day? Hey, fuck, you had a stroke. Is he sitting at your breakfast table every morning? Hey, remember you had that stroke 2 days ago? He's never let me forget. Like, he had a stroke a month ago. Remember the Biden administration? This was such a bad debate. And like I said, I can't find the highlights of it. You know, this is just the opening statement. But there was, like, shit throughout the debate. And, you know, he did Federman stuff. Of course, he's gotten somewhat better, but he's still impaired. He wasn't good to start off with. And he kicked Oz's ass. After this debate, he should have, this was like, you know, one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, this guy can't be senator. And he got elected anyway. And because Oz was a Trumper and Oz was a piece of shit and he was not even really a Pennsylvanian, I mean, the whole thing. And so now Trump has put him in a very important position, just like he did with Linda McMahon. And it shows you that this is why Trump, this is how Trump hires people. He hires people because they are loyal Trumpers. That's your biggest qualification. Some of the people are a little bit better than others, but they're all Trumpers. They've all, like, kissed Trump's ass regularly and, you know, with passion.
And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very
Needs to get back up.
much, Mr. Federman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality. But this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions.
Okay, so look at this fucking guy, right? And this is like a condemnation of Trump to make this guy anything. But Trump doesn't give a shit about how things look because there's Trumpers, you know, the devout Trumpers, they're just never going to get it, which is sad. Like they are, I mean, like it's just like you're brain dead, right? Like what part of you can't see that Trump's a piece of shit, right? You know, remember when Trump, let me see if I can find it here. So, there's Trump. He used to have this thing here. That used to be his thing. Weird fucking Freemasonic symbol or something. I don't know. Hand gesture. And so Bill Clinton isn't the only accused rapist because Trump, in his divorce documents, his first wife, Ivanka, I don't know what her name is, Ivana Trump, was accused him. It's filed in the court documents. And, of course, E. Jean Carroll. It's, again, you can say the story's fake or not. Either way, you know, he's said this about that.
Our patriotic movement will overcome this terrible deception.
This is 2016.
Hopefully our great movement, and there's never been anything like this in the United States. And the only
Never been anything like it.
way they figure they can slow it down is to come up with people that are willing to say, oh, I was with Donald Trump in 1980. I was sitting with him on an airplane. And he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you.
So she accused him of raping her on an airplane. He said she's not his first choice. What's your top 5 women that you would want, or people that you would want to rape? Like, what the fuck? She was too ugly for like everyone should have known he was the people watching this should have been like, what the fuck? It's weird and fucking crazy and just, like that's not appropriate response to a woman who's accusing you of rape, right? Yeah, she's too ugly for that. You know, like, he said it multiple times. But that thing where he said she would not be my first choice, and he's, you know, talking about rape here. So, this is fucking Donald Trump. And his people will never wake up to him. I mean, that's, you know, him saying that thing about Fifth Avenue, being able to shoot someone in the face on Fifth Avenue. Like, he's done it all. Operation Warp Speed. Like, what does this guy got to do for you to realize he's a piece of shit? And the COVID website would be good, but this guy's appointing a bunch of dopes. I mean, Kennedy's going to do whatever Kennedy does or not do. whatever that is. But he's in, he was in bed with these pharmaceutical companies. He got $1 million from Pfizer. Kennedy, RFK Jr. said Trump was was listening to him on some of his medical stuff and was going to appoint him as some kind of position. But Pfizer gave him $1 million and he dropped Kennedy the first time. So, that's whatever, right? But this guy, the COVID thing would be great if this guy had some credibility. He has none. And he called himself the father of the COVID vax, which he, kind of is. The whole Operation Warp Speed, which is the bullshit Trump thing. Not taking accountability for all that shit. And then how he got worked on COVID, like I said during, earlier. And so the thing is, it's got some more truth in it, but it isn't truth. You say, well, it's a little bit better. Well, no, it's not, because it's coming from a guy like this. A guy who's using a little bit of truthful information, a little bit more, a little bit better than what you got from Biden. But it's not real. It's not fucking real. It makes you think it's real, which is kind of worse, because he's really stabbing you in the fucking heart, right? Here's another one here.
Your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
And so he was clearly not fit to be serving. I mean, his reaction, he couldn't even celebrate his win. He got depressed after winning, felt like he was incompetent, dressing up like a guy with sweatshirt and all that shit. I mean, just, all the stuff that he did, on top of the fact he can't speak and he can't listen. He doesn't understand what people are saying to him. And that's kind of his whole job. And he's horrible at it. And Dr. Oz couldn't beat that. Like, that's how bad Oz was, right? I mean, really fucking, I think I have one more here. So fracking is horrible. Fracking should stop. I don't give a shit what suffering it causes to the American economy, or Pennsylvania, or any of these places. It's horrible. They're trying to get natural gas by injecting poisons deep into the earth, and it's fucking horrible on every level. Bad fucking idea. Should never be allowed. But in Pennsylvania, you got to be for fracking. And, I mean, at least Federman was on the right side of this, but then he had to lie about it and become a fracker. And this is how he handled it.
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand, and I do support fracking.
I mean, that's how bad, fucking, I mean, it was unbelievably a horrible debate performance. So this was something, this dude, this Republican, this closeted gay Republican guy from CNN. This was something left over from my last video or 2 videos ago. I didn't get to put this in, but let's just watch a little of this.
Of it. I think Trump supporters and the people who put him in office would say that he's not turning the government into a weapon. He's turning it into a shield. He's shielding the American people from illegal immigration. He's shielding the American people from having their tax dollars used for ridiculous purposes. All of these things that you mentioned, you may call them weaponization, but a lot of people would say we need a shield against a lot of these bad actors and bad institutions.
You didn't address any of the things that I actually did bring up. I mean, he's saying to American universities, you need to admit a certain number of conservatives. I'll address the universities. Or you will lose your tax-exempt status. He is saying that he signed an executive order in the White House saying, investigate 2 individuals who told the truth about the last election and criticized me publicly. That is weaponization.
Regarding the universities, first of all, he's creating...
Is Trump weaponizing the government like he claimed Democrats were? Of course he is. Of course he was going to do this. And, he could have done this for COVID. He could have signed executive orders like he's doing now when they did all this bullshit COVID stuff. But he didn't, right? He got worked on it. And so that's kind of the point of this video. Like Trump getting completely worked on COVID and then coming out like he was on the right side of it, right? Like he's not a truther. And it's worse to have somebody who's seems like a partial truther or a partial truth teller when they're doing it just to use you. Like he's using the truth community, he's using all these people, the Republicans, the right-wing people, the QBs, he's using them. He tells them what they want to hear, and he gives them a little crumb here or there. And you're like, well, at least I got a crumb from Trump. I never got any crumbs from Biden. Trump could have done what Biden did when remember how much censorship they did during COVID. Like I had all this information of stuff that I did to get through my COVID stuff that could have been so helpful to people, right? Like my wife and I discovered a lot of things that worked for us, and then post recovery, like I know a lot of things about natural alternative medical stuff that really helped me get through COVID and rebuild my body to the extent that I'm exercising. I mean, the heart palpitations are almost gone. I'm exercising now. I've always walk about, 3 to 10 miles a day, whatever it is, depending on the weather and whatever's going on. And I do farm work and these things. And I couldn't do shit after COVID. Like I was just devastated. My body was a wreck. I talked about this significantly in many videos. And, they censored all that stuff. YouTube wouldn't let you talk about alternative medical, options or any of these things. And, Biden came in and censored all of these various outlets, and which Trump could have done, and they have this provision. It's it's something 2000 something, whatever it is. I could look it up. I don't need to, but it's what it does is it allows Facebook and these other social media giants to not be sued for shit people put on their website, and without that they couldn't run. Like so, they have this exemption, and Biden threatened to take it away unless they censored things, including stuff to do with his son. I mean, that was weaponization of the government, and that was censorship violation of the First Amendment. And he lost an epic case in like Missouri and Louisiana, Mississippi and Louisiana. It was like 2 states sued him, and there was this massive amount of information that the people who were, prosecuting the case against Biden put out there. And Biden's defense was basically he's president, he's exempt, the kind of shit that Trump does. Trump could have did that same thing when they started to censor him. He could have threatened to take away this thing that they had, right, during 2020, and it would have bankrupted those companies, and then they wouldn't be able to censor them. And Trump's always finding loopholes. He could have stood up for all of us getting censored, all of us being forced to do COVID shit that was bad. He could have stood up for it. He had the ability to sign executive orders, but he caved. He fucking caved, and then he did Operation Warp Speed. He's a piece of shit, right? He's not, but he's now going after people the way that Biden went after people, but not for, good reasons. The only thing that the Cardinal Sin with Trump is criticizing that guy.
I think a shield for the Jewish students on campus who have been the victim of horrible...
Oh, Jesus Christ. What about the Palestinian kids?
Anti-Semitism. And he's saying to these universities, you cannot simply screen out all viewpoints that don't adhere to your anti-Western civilization
absolutely
worldview.
No one is doing that.
Absolutely they are.
No, they're not.
You and I have both been on college campuses recently.
What evidence do you have that they're screening?
I've been on a college campus recently, and I can certainly use my eyes and ears. These are hotbeds of anti-American and anti-Western civilization activity, and everybody knows it.
What?
And there's no dissent on these campuses.
Oh, so wait, now MAGA wants DEI.
Everyone's afraid.
Now they want to be included. Like now they want affirmative action for them. Like that's cool.
So you
now.
admit that you want universities to exclude everyone but the radical left?
No, because there's no proof that they're actually being excluded. Because if that, no, there isn't.
96% of contributions from Harvard faculty went to Democrats. What else you got?
Okay, so you're talking about contribution. I'm talking about
what people's political
on campus,
viewpoints are.
who is teaching people. So if they were such a weapon,
okay, Harvard and these schools, they have old money people in there. Their parents who are Republican or not even anything. These skull and bonesers who are, they're not Democrat or Republican. They are. They're in the shadow government. Like they send their kids to these elite universities. And so this is fucking silly, the whole thing. But this guy's just an absolute tool. And he's making the Democrats look good because they're taking unsupportable positions. And again, you could say Trump's done this, it's good. Trump's done that, that's good. There are some benefits from Trump administration. There's less censorship now for people like me, but not because of Trump. Trump could have protected us when he could have protected himself and us when he got fucking. Remember, he was deplatformed, and he had the power to stop that shit, right? But as soon as he lost the election, they came after him, and he could have done that before and signed an executive order so they couldn't do that shit while he was running for president, while they were discriminating and they were censoring real information about COVID. and nobody's ever been held accountable for these things. And Trump can put out his website like, yeah, we're telling the truth now. Fuck you. You had a chance to stand up for this thing, and you didn't. And you were the fucking, you were the father of Operation Warp Speed, you know, so that's the whole thing. Anyways, Trump's a piece of shit. I'm going to answer some comments, but first I want to show you my farm stuff here. I was talking to my wife and mom on the phone call. This tiny little turtle here. It's just hatched. Maybe this is probably when they just hatched. They're cool painter turtles. Put it back there. No, we're not doing that, Dulcie. Dulcie wants to get her teeth around everything. It's a nice little turtle. That's neat. Oh, there's another next one. This one here. I mean, it's just much hatched. They're just hatched and crawled into the water probably the last day or so. Just starting to swim. Tulsi, we're not doing that. Leave it alone, okay? These are little cute little turtles. Well, that's a miracle. Not a miracle. But I just have to come out. We got a bunch of little turtles around here every year. They lay eggs. Okay, so the wind was really bad. It was Friday. Wonderful day. Beautiful day outside, 70 degrees. And I came out with the dogs, and there's these tiny little turtles. They're painter turtles. And let me go back to the beginning here. So my wife and I, we were at the beach, and my wife had always wanted to see a turtle laying and say like a sea turtle. And we went out during the summer and we saw it. It was kind of cool. And then, you know, we got back and we were walking through our pasture in the same year. And there was a turtle, a painted turtle that was laying eggs by the side of the path I'd cut through the pasture. So we marked it and we kind of said, well, how many, you know, we remember the date, and it was like a 2 months gestation period. So there was 2 baby turtles here, and there was 3 eggs there, but one of them didn't hatch, and 2 of the turtles hatched. We happened to, it's not a part of the pasture we normally would walk through every day, and we were just walking through there, and there's 2 turtles there, baby turtles, just hatched, really cute. We brought them out to our pond, and then we watched them. They spent most of this summer in the pond. You know, there's other ponds around us, and sometimes they go to the other ponds, the turtles. They don't stick around for the, you know, entire time. And then last year there was also baby turtles. There was like 4 of them. And this year I happened to go out and saw these baby turtles. And so it was a beautiful day on Friday. We saw a scarlet tanager, which, you know, my wife came home and she got to see the turtles as well. There was one of them. One of them had disappeared already, you know, to some other part of the pond. And we saw a scarlet tanager, which is a beautiful red bird. We thought it was a cardinal, which we see a lot of cardinals, but we saw that. And there's a bunch of great things happen. Just wonderful day. You know, I made some kind of special meal. You know, we have some of our steaks from the cows that we processed a couple of years ago. And we had asparagus, and my wife cut up the morel mushrooms, and I make the asparagus dish. My wife has it was a whole thing. Just wonderful meal. Just a beautiful day. Like a really, like just one of those special days. It was so warm outside. We got the chicks in the, you know, greenhouse, and they were outside, and we found more morel mushrooms, and it was the whole thing, right? Like just one of those like great farm days where we're finding food on the farm, which is always better than regular food you get from the grocery store. And so, yeah, so there was that. These morel mushrooms are often in a line. So this was the one we just cut over here. We're having this one. It's the first one I found. There's another one we just found over here. It's not ready to harvest yet. This other big one here. So this line. Don't also leave it alone. And then there's a tiny one I found this morning. These are all on a line. As they start, you know, you start poking through the grass. So there's always, like I said, a line of growth. We've had bigger, but it's pretty much just, you know, they don't get much bigger than that. And this one's an interesting one here. A little dark on the edge, but they're, yeah. No, Tulsi, leave that alone. There's a leopard, there's a pickerel frog there. There's a little frog in there, over there. One of the little ones. There's probably about 15 frogs in here. Some of them Tulsi's chased in there. There's one's mating here. One's mating. No, Tulsi, we're leaving that alone. It's toads. That looks like a toad there. There's little frogs that looks, I don't know what those are, toads or not. Two over here. Come on, Tulsi. There's one on the bottom of the thing there. Come on, Tulsi, please. Tulsi, come on. That dude just jumped in. Kill the Tulsi. There's a little one over there. I don't know if you can see it on the rock. But there's, I mean, the ones that already dove in and are hiding. Like that one down there. There's one over there floating. They're everywhere. It's making so much noise. We have the door open. It's like 75 degrees out here. All right, Tulsi, come on, good girl. Found this night cloud. I'm gonna go bring it to the chicks. Turn on their heat lamp. So, okay, we got it. All right, guys, let's go. Come on, guys. Come on, poppers. These guys are all chilling in the little box there. It's so hot in here. We got thermometers in here. It's 80 degrees. The greenhouse got hot today because it's very sunny. Windy, but sunny. All right, I'm going to hike this lamp up so we have some heat later on in the morning when it's cold. It's like 10 o'clock at night now, but there's the big guy. So my wife and I saw this bullfrog. We went kayaking. It's been too windy since then in our pond. You know, our pond, it swells up in the spring and then it's like 1/4 of the size by the end of the summer. And this frog was the biggest frog we've ever seen. Like, we thought it was an otter or a snapping turtle. It's got this massive fin. You really can't see it. It's probably a good 8 to 10 inches long, with the legs even longer. Probably, I don't know how long, a foot long. It probably weighs like a pound or two. And it makes a big move. It's huge. It's like it's like one of those Amazon bullfrogs. And so that was cool. Those are back here. It's a dude there. It's a dude there. A couple of dudes over here. That guy just swam in the water. That guy just swam. Tulsi's chasing around. Come on, Tulsi, let's go over to the... Come on, Tulsi. I gotta check out the chickens. Night crawlers over here. There's a night crawler there. Some of these guys will be a bunch over here. They'll all go into their holes really quick. You see them all just start in there. So they're all going in their holes. I don't know how well the camera picked up here. There's more of them. There's more of them. They're all over the place here. There's a couple of worms fucking there. Don't kill them, Tulsi. Good for you guys. Good for you guys. Well, there's night crawlers all over the place here. Most of them have gone in, but we gotta cut the grass, but we're leaving it long to grow the mushrooms. We're getting ticks, so it's like I gotta start cutting the grass here. All right. Another couple of copulators there. And these white night crawlers, they're good. There's another one. At least they haven't freaking. Oh, they just went in. I messed up. I worm blocked them. There's another dude there. The previous owner of this property planted some bulbs, which is great. There's these natural flowers that are here. These purple flowers. They're all over the place. This one area, and there's some fruit trees, some blossoms on them. Some of them are good. Some of them, they don't produce because you usually get a late frost. We got a great peach tree and a great apricot tree. The apricots are kind of small, but they taste well good. The apples are good for, like, I'm sure for pies and certainly for like cider. And we have some good pear trees. But she also planted this comfrey. And this comfrey has a taproot that's like 15 feet. So you can't get rid of it once you plant it. I just made myself and my wife this morning a shake. I got some pineapple, but we have mint that grows here and comfrey. You know, they say that comfrey can cause liver failure, so I'm not recommending anything. It's something for people to do their own research. But I make those shakes, you know, in the spring. Has not had any issues with it. But it's also good for pulling up minerals deep from the soil. So people put it in their compost, and there's lots of health uses for comfrey, whereas people put it on rashes and cuts and things. And so it's got a lot of You know, because it's got such a deep taproot, it pulls up minerals from a deeper part of the earth. And like I said, once you plant it, you can't get rid of it. It spreads all over the place, but where we don't want it, we just drive over it with the lawnmower. I'm leaving the grass long right now because we're still looking for morel mushrooms. And I want to do an update on the morels, and then I'm going to post this stuff. Today's, again, Easter Sunday. We have a lot of dandelions here, too. Which I eat those dandelion flowers. And I don't recommend anything like for people to do themselves, but it's what I do. And the greens, especially good now. They're not as bitter now as later on, and they're not as tough. They're more tender. There's some here. One of those. It's a little green there. That's, good for the liver. Tulsi just saw a squirrel. So there's a couple of squirrels over there fighting, and Tulsi's going to chase them. There's this vein of straight line. Please, Tulsi, come on. She's gonna be curious of whatever I'm talking about. There's a straight line here of morels. There's another one here, and these are all growing bigger. There's one we cut from here, a couple that we've already cut, and then there's this little one that I found that's no longer little. It's over here, growing through that's one's twice as big as it was the day before. So there should be some more popping up. This is an area that the ground heated up a little bit earlier than other parts of the yard because there's no shade here. So hopefully we'll see a bunch popping, and then we can cut the grass because dogs are getting a lot of ticks on them. And so we're trying to gather up all the morels and then cut the grass. So I want to get to some comments. That's what I want to talk about. My dog Lucy, I think I'm going to weave that into one of the comments, I think. Somebody's upset about me using the Lord's name in vain. Their Lord's name in vain. We have these, morel mushrooms. And I remember from last year, and I think I told this story. So originally my wife was like, we went to some woods, and we were in the spring, and she goes, let's go look for morel mushrooms, and she explained this to us. I'd never heard of them before. I wasn't a big mushroom person. But now I'm getting these, I started eating umami, and I found this shiitake umami, which is just shiitake mushrooms that are been powderized. And it really added flavor to everything. I was putting it in everything, and just everything I usually make got better. And then I found that they had the same company, and I had gotten some, eventually I'll show these, the company that I get these from, Micro something. They also make pine pollen that we take regular pine pollen as loaded with B vitamins. Again, I don't recommend anything. This is just what I do. And then I found that they had they also did 10 different mushrooms or 14 different mushrooms all in one. And we started adding that powder to everything. And we were taking mushroom tincture because a lot of these mushrooms all of them have medicinal value, and they are very similar to the human constitution. I used to not like mushrooms, but my wife had sort of convinced me, and I've learned to like them. And they've added so much flavor in these powders. And I put them in salads and everything that I cook. And it's enhanced the flavor. And it's got all these nutrients in it. And then I added lion's mane, which was already in the shiitake and the lion's mane were in the 10 or 12 or whatever it is. It's a number of different mushrooms that they've blended together. But the lion's mane is particularly good for brain health. And I added a little bit extra lion's mane with that. And that really made the flavor pop because lion's mane have a very distinct flavor. And so anyways, been getting into mushrooms, and my wife said, let's look for these, these morels. And one day my son said, I think I saw some of those mushrooms by the garage, and it was right on the driveway. They like granite, they like different kinds of rock and stuff, which we had there. We have a stone driveway. And the guy, he found these mushrooms, which I couldn't believe. I was like, no way, because we had searched through the woods for them. And we then found them all over our yard, and we've then since found them in different places in our yard. We get a different yield every spring depending on when it gets warm and how wet it is. There's all these factors, right? But last year we came home from traveling, And we started to find, my son had found one of them. And then we found more. And I found the most. And my son pointed out that, and my wife said, oh, well, you're good finding them. Which he said this year, this would remind, I forgot all about this. And my son said to me, yeah, that's strange because you're not good at finding things. And I'm actually am, right? And he had this story where somehow I lost something. And, I might have actually been just seeing if they could find it, just to give them some, skills, right? But I don't even remember this. So, but there were times that I think I did stuff like that I, would lose something and I'd find it and I'd mark where it was and I'd have the kids look for it just because, they had to learn to do those types of things, right? And they found it and, and he thought I couldn't find it or maybe I couldn't find it and they did. And from that one interaction, he just thought I was bad at finding things, right? And of course, my ex was bad-mouthing me all the time, and so there's some of that. But, it's something I'm actually good at. And my wife mentioned it again, that I was good at finding the mushrooms, like we all can find them. But, I have a, strategy, which they're always in, I can see they're in these lines of growth. And the ones that are we found this time, there's a tree root that's above the grass a little bit. It's protruding above the grass, and they grew right next to that, all along a line. And there's other mushrooms around that tree, different types of mushrooms, and so there's just strategies and things more that we've learned about them. But in terms of finding them, I'm just good at it. But my kids, at least my one son, maybe all of them, thought I was bad at it, and I'm like, they lived with me their whole life, in terms of their youth. And they know nothing about me. I'm not talking about myself here. I'm talking about anybody. You think that they know you. There's things about them that stand out. About I've cooked them so many meals. For years, and I cooked most of the meals that they were growing up. And after we got back from India, I made a salad, and maybe I didn't chop the salad up enough. And they were complaining about it, and it was this thing. And I'm like, I've cooked for you just all this stuff for years, and that's their takeaway. Is your dad a good cook? Well, there was this one time he didn't chop the, this kind of shit, right? And there's these things that pop, and oftentimes you're defined by some kind of, singular moments that are more memorable to people, which is just even your own family, and they don't know anything about you. And that's the reality. My kids almost know nothing about me. Okay, I'm going to go eat lunch, and I'll come back, and I'll finish this up with some comments that I want to get to with my dog, Lucy. Okay, just a couple of comments to get to. I want to wrap this one up. Beautiful day outside. My wife and I just found 3 more morels. They have these underground veins of mycelium. And mycelium is something we put down with our plants, so you get these little bags of it. But it seems like some of the fundamental building blocks of life come from mushrooms. There's these, the trees, these mother trees, and they interconnect with other trees, and there's communication underground, and all these, the plant kingdom. And so there was a line of mushrooms I've learned from last year. I figured this out, that the mushrooms were always seemed to be in a line. And we started marking them, and that was easy to see. There'd be one 6 feet away, so there's a line underneath the ground where there's some. And so we found another vein of mushrooms, and there's 3 of them there. Well, anyways, let's get into the, I want to talk about Lucy, my dog Lucy. She's just great. She was a really great dog. A border collie. Well, maybe I just have one thing. I don't know. Let me see. This is what the person says here. Paul, you kind of blasphemed his name, saying feces, Christ. I don't. It's feces ch at 132:19. You don't want to take his name in vain, but then associate with excretions. You don't want to take his name in vain. How do you know what I want? But associate with excretions. Wouldn't your mindset doing the heartfulness meditation and stuff make you more mindful in that regard? Now, you can be offended. I'm going to say things that offend people, but really, no one should be offended by words that aren't directly directed towards them, right? Like there's people who say Jesus doesn't exist, whatever it is. But if you're going to say you're offended about your belief system and your guy, I could understand that, don't care, right? Like I'm not trying to offend anybody. It's not my intention. And I understand about using the Lord's name in vain. He's not my Lord. But first of all, I don't do heartfulness because Saj Marg, the natural path, it had two names, the Sri Ramchandra mission and Saj Marg, which translates to the natural path. And Daji came in, this guy, Kamash Patel, he was appointed the fourth master and president of the system. And he failed. He just fucking failed. I've documented his failure. It was hard for me to deal with. But, heartfulness became a wannabe cult. I really can't call it a cult because it's so incompetent. But it's cult-like. It's like cult for stupid, whatever. It's cult of stupidity. And Daji just doing a lot of criminal and other bullshit things, right? So you don't even know what my thing is. And so you're saying, this kind of thing is a dickish thing to say. See, this is personal. Like, I'm not saying Jesus' name to hurt your feelings, but you're saying, wouldn't your mindset doing the heartfulness meditation and stuff make you more mindful in that regard? Heartfulness and mindfulness are two different things. And Saj Marg is, it's about meditation on the heart and forgetting about everything material. You're forgetting about your fear of your material body. And so mindfulness is exhausting. Mindfulness, you're thinking about everything. You're mindful of your breath. You're mindful of the pressure on your butt and your back when you're sitting. You're mindful of the guy snoring next to you. You're mindful of, everything, something you smell. Like it's just physical. And mindfulness meditation, mindfulness practice has no spiritual benefit. It can make you more mindful. It can make you more, maybe reality-based. I don't know what mindfulness meditation does, but it's the opposite with Saj Marg. Saj Marg, you forget about your body. You want to sit in a comfortable pose and forget about your body and all these things. Now, it does make you more sensitive. And there was a period of time when my kids were little and my ex was being stupid about it. And, maybe it was a good thing. And I worked towards not swearing. Like my dad encouraged me to swear. He took me to Blazing Saddles when I was like 7 years old. Some R-rated, stupid, frickin' Mel Brooks movie. And, he encouraged me to swear. And I swore regularly. My mom kind of got pissed about it because she was Catholic. But she got mad at my dad. Like I told that story where two kids in school, or some kids were talking about how the only way to have babies was to fuck, right? Which I was only kind of mildly aware of what that was when I was 7, but I knew it wasn't a good thing. And so I'm riding home with my mom. I'm in the back seat of our Ford Maverick. And I say to my mom, some kids at school said the only way to have babies is to fuck. You and Dad didn't do that, did you? Like, I was disgusted. From my limited knowledge with my 7-year-old brain of what, fucking was. I knew it wasn't good, and I couldn't believe my mom would engage in such behavior. And so she said, well, I wouldn't quite put it that way. But anyways, I started to swear early on. And Saj Marg is definitely not pro-swearing. The masters never swore, like at least not publicly. And, if they did, it was mild and not like I did. And there was a time where YouTube was demonetizing anything for potty mouthing. And so I just got rid of it, and I can do it if I wanted. And this particular video, I noticed I was swearing a lot. And for whatever reason, recently I've been saying Jesus Christ, and I think it's because of all the fake Christians that are Trump people. And I think that's maybe why that's come about. It wasn't anything intentionally on my part. But it's not to offend Jesus or Christians. And so, it's just what it is. When I first started to do Saj Marg meditation, I heard it from my counselor therapist who my ex-girlfriend went to see. She was 2 blocks away from where we were living. We were in the sort of breakup process. And I ended up going to see her. And she told me about Saj Marg. And my ex-girlfriend thought it was weird. and she didn't like it. And I was trying to tell her something about it, and I told her there's this guy Babaji, and she was a nurse, and she had a friend who worked with her was a nurse, who would burp and say Bobby Oba when she burped, because she was really classy. and so my ex-girlfriend started to call Babaji Bobby Oba, which was kind of disrespectful. And, I mean, it was kind of mocking me a little bit too. I mean, but whatever. Like, it didn't bother me because, things they're just words, and people are going to have their opinion and whatever it is, right? And so, but you should know better than, for one, trying to correct me or saying things. You could say, you're using the Lord's name in vain a lot lately. And I am aware of it. Like, I've been saying Jesus Christ and Jesus fucking Christ. I don't know where that's coming from. But I think it's like kind of a frustration with all these fake Christians that are Trumpers in Trump's cabinet, the fake Christian Barbie, all these people that are not real Christians. And that these are anti-Christian things that Trump is doing, right? Like, Trump is doing things that God and Jesus wouldn't, good Christians wouldn't do. And, and I was just listening today, he was calling the vaccine a miracle. He saw an Operation Warp Speed a miracle. In this video, you heard it. Like, I heard I haven't listened to that thing in a while. But he said it, and just, like, is it a miracle? Do you think it's a miracle? You think you should call that a miracle? He's called a lot of things miracles that were clearly not miracles, and they weren't divine. It's just whatever it is. I called Dodgy a little bitch. Like, what happened was, I was so flabbergasted by the shit he was pulling, and how everything was falling apart, and everything was so low brow and so fucking low vibration. Dodgy. But I had experiences of his divinity. I saw him be made into the master, and before he was the master of the system, he was a really good preceptor in Abiyasi, and I had a mostly high opinion of him. But I had some questionable experiences with him, and he seemed really stupid at times. And he got stupider, which is, like, mind-blowing. But I saw he got all the spiritual work done, and he had the same energy as Chargy. Like, he'd walk into the room, and he had that same masterly energy. It was like a presence. And if you ever get a chance to experience something like that, I mean, it's just a great thing. Like, it's, there are people who are, spiritual gurus, and they have this aura or presence. And, some of them are, it's superficial, but it's there. It's real, but it's not deep, and it's not on the highest level. But when Chargy walked into the room, or you could just feel him, like you would feel his presence if you walked, if he was walking by you and you'd feel it behind, like it was this thing. And people just wanted to be around him because being in his sphere, being within, 100 feet or so of him, or like a big gathering, it was, just the presence and the condition, the spiritual energy that was there. And Dodgy had all that, but he fucked it up. And so I was pretty pissed at him and the whole thing. And he was like, running scams and the Brighter Minds bullshit thing, and, all the stuff he was doing. And of course now is, he started that pharmacy, that he started, he had pharmacies before he was the master of the system, but then he turned the pharmacies into these online business. And his son got, his son was running the business now, but it was a family business. And now he's being indicted by the SEC, or there's this, whatever that is, for $170 million of investor money that he defrauded them out of by manufacturing data that was inaccurate to get money out of people. Like, they embellished their system, their business, to get investor money, and it was just all lies. And so 3 people, including Dodgy's son, who now lives in India with Dodgy's, avoiding, they're American citizens. They were born in America as kids. And so the whole thing's fucked, right? And he's fucked the thing up. And so I made the mistake of posting these videos on Facebook, and people started to watch them. And I put Dodgy Sucks in the title. And I had all these people in the mission, many of them in India, watching my videos. And I said some disrespectful thing to him. And some of these people were calling for my assassination. And, there was the whole thing's kind of funny. But, like, they're just words. Like, he's wrecked the whole movement. Like, this guy's they think that I'm a piece of shit. And, I'm not denying anything, But I certainly am not as bad as Dodgy, who took down an organization that affected all of us. There's thousands of people and people in the future that are going to be affected by the, what he's done. It's hard to hear when you hear people say things negatively about, like if people are talking shit about Jesus or, God, or, you're a devotee or something, or talking about your religion. And, it is what it is for each person. And it's hard to hear those things. Again, I'm not saying Jesus Christ is disrespect to Jesus. It's just a, turn of phrase. And, again, I don't know why. It wasn't it wasn't one of my favorite swears, but I've been using it lately. But again, I can understand where people feel a certain kind of way about those types of things. But there's no intention on my part. It's just silly, right? It's silly to be offended by it because I don't give a shit. Like, I'm not, it's not like I'm doing something to, I believe that Jesus is a part of the Sajmarg hierarchy. He's supposed to be in charge of the spiritual point too, and he intercommuned with Babaji numerous times. And so, and I had the dream with him in it, which would probably mean if I had some past association with him. And I'm very grateful for my Catholic, growing up as a Catholic, and my religious training that was, pretty good. Like, I benefited from that, and it got me kind of understanding a little bit about God. And then I graduated out of that into a spiritual system. But in my mom, my grandmother said the rosary and prayed for me and my family, my brothers and sisters. And I think it had at least, some effect on my brother and I finding Sajmarg. So, I have a good positive association with Jesus, whatever it is. I have a positive opinion about him. And Christians, for the most part, Christians were responsible for homeschooling, which helped my family, and other things so Christians did that have helped. There's things Christians have lobbied for, and there would be no homeschooling in America if it wasn't for Christians, and things like that. So, and I have mostly good Christians. I have a lot of good Christians that come, what I consider good Christians, that come to my YouTube channel, that listen, whatever. They do something different than I do, but there's some shared, experience that we have. And so, like, I don't it's not like I'm anti-Christian. I know the Bible isn't what, there's just, I'm anti-lies, and there's lies in religion. There's, I was able to do it with my thing. Like, I could just pretend Dadaji was great, like all these other morons, that do my practice. There's people who I respect, and I think they're better at Sajmarg than me. They're more committed to it. But they haven't been able to deal with the Dodgy thing. They just haven't. Like, I am much better at that than they are. Like, they just couldn't deal with it, and I could. And a lot of that came from my truther training and my looking for truth and recognizing I couldn't bullshit myself about something that was so obvious that he shit the bed. And so there's lies in Christianity, there's lies in the Bible, the religions themselves, and there's teachings that, it's not what people think it is. Like, there's an indoctrination process. It's not what Christians think it is. And so, like, Jesus isn't who they think he is, and like, he's a divine being. He's someone who reached a high level of spirituality, higher than the average person. But, there's still more to go, and there's a lot of bullshit in the religion, including John 3:16. And that is, again, I'm not trying to convince anybody that, but that's what I believe, and that's what I'm going to say. There's plenty of places you can go where people are going to not use the Lord's name in vain, and who are going to tell you that the Bible's great. And that's, that's great. I'm not shitting on those channels. I don't go over there and tell them what to say or not say, right? Or what to believe. But, like, don't do it to me. This is what I express here. You don't like what I have to say. You don't agree with it, then just go somewhere else. Like, that's been made abundantly clear on my part. Because I don't care. Like, it's just, I don't even care about my beliefs. Why the fuck would I care about yours? Right? That should be another T-shirt. I don't care about my beliefs. Why the fuck would I care about yours? I don't know how to make the T-shirts anymore. I'd have to redo it, but I'd go make that T-shirt right now. If, I could. Anyways, I was going to end this by talking about my dog Lucy, so let me do that here. And I was going to frame it in, I used to call Master Chargy Master, but, I believed him to be the master, and I guess to whatever extent my master, in the Sajmarg traditional way. It's not a master-slave relationship. It's, it's whatever it is for Indians, it's different. But, I have problems with authority. And that includes God, and, I had more so then. And it's a little bit awkward, right? And it's not, word. I mean, master means, it's like a kind of slave master is how I think most Americans associate, Westerners do. The Indians grow up with this kind of guru culture, and it's good and it's bad because they often times fall for bogus gurus, and they don't dare say anything about somebody, even if they're a fraud, because they're worried about being cursed. It's a whole thing. Where Americans think that you can, first of all, they do the religion. If they don't like the religion, Americans have difficulty accepting some sort of organized, religious, spiritual, whatever it might be. Because when Babaji first started to register Sajmarg in every country, that people were doing it. So he went to Europe and he was registering it with the government because, that's what you do, right, with these organizations. And there's these European hippies, and they're like, why do you want to be organized? Why do you want to be an organized, group, religion, or whatever it is? Because it would be, it's a spiritual, Sajmarg is spiritual. The difference between religion and spirituality is religion has God outside of you. That God is somehow outside of you. You're trying to get to heaven where God exists. And spirituality is about finding God within, which is a significant leap. But in terms of registering your organization by country, it would be considered religion, spiritual, whatever. Usually be considered religion. And so there's people that were pissed that left Christianity, these hippies in the 1970s and 1960s when, Babaji registered these, it was in the 70s. And, he came to Europe in 1972. And some guy asked him, why do you want to be organized? And Babaji says, because I don't want to be disorganized. Which was one of his, brilliant kind of answers, right? But, I started to become a parent. I became a father. I'd always been an uncle, younger, older brother kind of thing. I've been the youngest. I was born, I was the youngest in my family. And I didn't really matriculate well into the father role. And I started having to be a disciplinarian at work. And, I had to get, these kind of qualities I didn't possess. And, I had this dog, Lucy. We got her at this, this sort of, they were giving away, they had these dogs, rescue dogs, and she was going to be put down in like a week. And she was a full-grown dog, but young. And she was mostly border collie and something else. She was a little bit longer and leaner than a border collie. And she's just a beautiful dog. And my family just saw her, and we were like, oh my God, we got to take her home. And we didn't have dogs, or really, it was kind of a spontaneous thing. And, I tried to train Lucy as a border collie when we started to get livestock, but I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I made some videos about it, and I got her, I learned the commands, and I watched some videos on it, but I didn't put the time and energy, and my family was just, in the process of falling apart. We were building this homestead, and my ex was having these, psychotic breaks and all this shit that was going on, things I talk about in other videos. And, I always feel like I wasn't a good dog owner, a good master to Lucy. This idea of being a master, right? Like I was Lucy's master. She immediately looked to me as she came into the family. She was a little bit nervous. I used to have to take her out. She wouldn't go to the bathroom unless I took her, on a leash to the woods. We had a little bit of woods on our property. We had 3 acres. And, then we got cows and chickens and things. And, she was just a great dog. And but she needed to work. She was a working dog, and I couldn't really do that for her. We got a little bit bigger farm, and we got more animals, but the cows don't need herding. They didn't need herding. Sometimes they did. We'd rent our neighbor's pasture, and there's some other things. But I don't feel like I did, I wish I had been a better master for her, because she was a great disciple. She was dogs are devotional, and she just looks, border collies are like, put me in, coach. They're always looking at you for direction and guidance. The dogs I have now are less like that, but they're kind of come pre-trained for the most part. Tulsi's not full Papillon, so she will walk ahead of us, but she always looks back to make sure that she's doing, we're together. She had a dog that almost got her, so she's a little bit more aware of that. And Buddy does the traditional thing where Papillons just naturally heel, and they walk behind you. We had this dog, Farley, who would walk behind us like if we went to a park or a beach where there's other people. Every once in a while she'd get confused and turn around and follow somebody else. But she was, and you wouldn't notice because she was so quiet. She's this little dog. But I'm a much better dog owner for these guys than I was for Lucy. There's a whole responsibility that if you have a disciple, you have somebody that's looking at you as the master, that you got to provide for them, right? You have to, give them what they need. Like, with the chickens and the cows and, whatever. I mean, even if you're going to process them, you're responsible for their, for so much of their existence, and you have to be, take it seriously. Like there's a divine process here, right? Especially like a dog who looks at you with like, love and admiration and looks at you like the alpha wolf and wants you to, lead them in the right direction. And, you're responsible to do whatever. And for me, I just don't feel like I did a good enough job for Lucy, which is, kind of a bummer because she used to look at me and I was like, I wish I was as good a disciple, to my spiritual master as Lucy is to me. Or I am to God or whatever. I wish I was like as devotional as she is and as, just, working assiduously, which these, border collies naturally do. So, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the Apocalypse. And the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.